I inquired, I think it was last fall, whether or not he had found any enormous monster pearls for me. And he said, well, no, he was afraid he didn't see anything. They're monsters and then they're Sheri monsters, and I go for the really big monsters. And so he said he hadn't seen anything. He said, but have you seen this one? And he pointed out the pearl that I had seen on the Pearl Guide blog. And it was in the photograph, Hisano was holding it with their little delicate hands, but it looked truly monstrous. And a number of people had made comments of ideas that they thought it could become. And when I saw that, I said, oh my, that is so gorgeous. I said, that is so gorgeous. And have you seen some of my creations? And I sent a photo of some other animal creations I'd done with Dresden papers. I said, my gosh, if I had a pearl like that, I could actually be inspired to get to working again in metal. And so I was able to acquire this pearl with the caveat that I do something worthy of it. I think the expectation was it was supposed to be pretty spectacular, and that I show the process and allow photos to be posted on the Pearl Guide blog. So Jeremy has not seen the final result. So I'll give you, again, some of you may have seen photographs of this pearl, and you may recognize it. But so I needed to spend some time communing with this pearl and deciding what it wanted to be. I knew I wanted to make an animal, of some sort, a creature of some sort. And so I spent a while. It took a while for me to get in the right mindset, relaxed, feeling creative. And then literally I spent like an entire evening turning the pearl upside down, right side up, around to try to figure out what it wanted to be. And so I came up with a few ideas, and I can show you photos, hopefully. Okay, it could have been the body of a swan, okay? That would have been probably the simplest rendition. It would have had been like floating on some sort of water or something, but that, okay, that was a possibility. I'd recently gone scuba diving in Lumbe Strait, where I saw all sorts of freaky, weird creatures. So it actually could have been a really interesting frogfish. Okay? And they really do look like that. That seemed a little undignified for this pearl, but it really looked like a frogfish, from a certain angle.
You could have a spring for that.
Yeah, I could have had a little dangle in front of, That was a possibility. It could have been kind of a weird mutant, squat, stubby, little seahorsey sort of thing.
Let's see.
See?
Yeah. It is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or, most complex, it could have been a leafy sea dragon.
Oh my God. That's what you did.
And in looking at all of these designs, this I knew would be the most complex to make, but this somehow seemed to be most worthy of this pearl and most in proportion that it could feature the pearl, and neither the design nor the pearl would be overshadowed by each other. So I decided on the leafy sea dragon, and I actually did a fair amount of research. I looked at pictures online. Let me see if I can find any quickly. But the interesting thing is, the body really looked like the body of a leafy sea dragon. So like when I found this photo, because this was just, I've seen them live when I've gone on scuba diving trips, and I thought of this, and then I saw the picture. It's like, yeah, it has to be a leafy sea dragon. So then the next question was how I was going to do this. And so I was thinking of working in precious metal clay. I do like sculpting things with my hands. I knew pretty early on that there was no way I was going to be able to make it in gold because it would be huge, and I'm the very happily starving artiste. So I wanted to make it out of silver. Was thinking possibly of accenting it with enamels, wasn't sure. And so I was thinking of precious metal clay, and if any of you aren't familiar with that, it's like very finely powdered fine silver in a ceramic-like binder that you fire in a kiln. And the binder burns out and you have solid fine silver. The main problem with that is it's proportionally it's very expensive compared to the metal itself. It would take a huge amount to do this, and more importantly, there's it's brittle because it's fine silver, and there's a factor of shrinkage in it, anywhere from 8 or 9 to 30%. And potentially, if I'm sculpting this around the pearl, I realize it could be difficult to get the proportions right. So, but I was still considering it. Then, very shortly thereafter, I took a refresher casting class. I'd done some jewelry casting in the past, and realized that my love of working sculpting with wax. And so I decided I would go ahead and cast this piece. So I will show you some work in progress shots. I like to sculpt things with my hands. So started out just using a sticky malleable wax. You know, if any of you use modeling clays, Fimo, Sculpey, those sort of things, it's wax that you can actually shape with your fingers. I sat in front of the TV set and warmed up lumps of wax in my armpits to soften it up a little bit. And then, so to get the basic shape, okay, and realized, yeah, that is looking pretty much in proportion. And then I added more bits. I had to simplify the design a little bit from the living creature. And then I started adding details using a harder wax with an alcohol lamp, to add some texture and details. And I know this may be small for you to see in the back, but you're welcome to come and look at pictures if you have any interest. Finished up details.
Wow.
So that was it in the wax. And then cast it in silver. I won't show you the post-casting pictures because it looks kind of dull and, before it's polished, and it needed some finishing, and I then had to fabricate to figure out how to actually get the pearl incorporated into it. It actually was cast in 5 pieces. Head, tail, and 3 parts for the middle leafy bits, and the head and tail were very easy and fit the pearl nicely. The 3 bits I had to get together somehow, and they were so dimensional it was very challenging to solder them, so I actually riveted them first and then I soldered them. And then I had to add a couple prongs. The pearl itself I didn't want to drill, and so it has no holes in it. I put it in this with epoxy. So if it comes unglued, you can always reglue it. And if you ever wanted to remove it, you put it in hot water and it softens and you can pry it off. So epoxy is kind of nice that way. I've removed pearls from settings, but hot water kind of does the trick. And then the final thing was figuring out how I could travel with it. So I actually rigged it up so I could stick it in a frame so I can display it if I want, but I added 3 post pin backs to the back, so it is a wearable pin. But Jeremy gets to see it first. And I ultimately decided I didn't want to add any enamel to it, because when I looked at the pearl, I realized, although in the photos it looked like a white pearl, it has a huge amount of rainbow iridescence to it. And I thought if I add color, it'll make it look like a white pearl. So I decided to leave the metal and just simply oxidize it. So now this is the reveal.
Oh, wow. It's really 3D.
And so you're welcome to pass it around.
Can I get a shot?
Yes.
Wow. Do you remember how big the pearl was?
Oh, it's like enormous.
55 or 45.
Yeah. Oh, 55.
55. So the whole thing is
Yeah,
like
it's over
150 millimeters. Almost.
Yeah, it's over like 2 inches would be 50 millimeters, and it's longer than 2 inches. Yeah, it's enormous. So I hope my work was worthy.
Love it.
So you're welcome to pass it around.
That is amazing.
I love the
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Nice.
The nice thing is that this whole thing has gotten me back into jewelry casting and doing my own design. So I will show one other thing. This actually was the first thing I did before that made me decide that I wanted to cast it. This was the piece I did I did in the like refresher.
Oh.
So
Very cool.
with a keishi pearl, freshwater keishi pearl in its head. I got from John too. So this
Very
is cast
cool.
in bronze. And then after that, I wanted to make a more dimensional cephalopods. I am a diver, so I do love all things aquatic, especially with tentacles, actually. But this is an octopus.
Everything with tentacles.
Yeah, everything with tentacles.
That's gorgeous.
So this is an octopus that I just finished, and it has an 18 millimeter pearl, but it's at this point it's just temporarily in there with museum wax because this is one that I was happy with the way it turned out, and this is one I'm seriously planning on making a mold of so I can reproduce it. Has 5 ounces of silver in it, but it could be made in bronze, probably not gold unless one has the resources. But yeah, so that's the latest. So hopefully more to come. Yeah.
I've been admiring it.
Yeah, and you're welcome to pass that around. Again, just know that the pearl is just in there temporarily.